Hello guys, the InnoVEX Pi stage will begin in 2 minutes. Please feel free to grab yourself a seat. Right, welcome back everyone. Please find yourself a nice seat. Hello guys, welcome to InnoVEX Pi stage. Have you ever wondered how do investors value a startup? To give you some good advice and tips, we will have Ms. Carman, the founder and managing partner of Click Ventures, to talk about how angel investors evaluate startup. So please give a big round of applause to Ms. Carman.
Hello, 你们好. My name is Carman. I'm the founder of Click Ventures. And actually, I was an entrepreneur myself many years ago. I've been running my own startup for 20 years. And I was a tech columnist. I write about internet-related topics for more than 10 years. And 3 years ago, I started Click Ventures. So before we start to share how angel investors look at startup, maybe I start with my one story. Because this story, I found that is very important for a startup because it's the spirit behind a startup to make it successful. And this story is not in the PowerPoint, so you need to listen. So when I was 11 years old, one day I went to a friend's house and I found that they renovated the house and I like it very much. I think it's very cool. So when I go back to my home, I asked my father if I can renovate our house. Of course, my father rejected the idea and I didn't give up. I went to look at my bank book. I found that I have 100-something Hong Kong dollar. It's around 400-something Taiwan dollar. And I went to the renovation shop. I asked about the price of different things for renovation. So I come up with a small project. I told my father how I'm going to execute the project, and I'm going to pay for the whole project myself. At that time, I don't even know the term invest. So I told my father I will pay for it. And magically, my father let me execute the project. So I went on, buy the tools, buy the paint, and I start to renovate my house. So in the whole process, I learned that if you want to put on new paint, you need to remove the old paint first. So that's why I start with the kitchen, because in the kitchen, it's hot inside, so the paint already come out a little bit, so it's much easier to remove it. So I remove all the paint in the kitchen easily, and I paint a new one. So the whole kitchen looks perfect. When I go to the living room, my next stage, the paint in the living room is much difficult to remove. So I added my plan. From plan A, I changed to plan B. I found the wall that I can remove, and I make it a feature wall. I repaint it. So the whole project ran out perfectly, and I was very happy, and I also learned a lot. So this story is the basic for running a startup. You need to have passion, 热情, and you need to have persistence, 坚持. 如果你没有坚持，就很难做下去。Running a startup is very, very lonely. So if you didn't have enough passion, if you didn't have enough persistence, it's very difficult to continue. So now let's have a look in what's happening now in the world. So if you look at so many startups, according to a lot of different studies around the world, we all know that 100 startups, more than 90 startups cannot make it within 3 years. 就是3年之内，这些 startup 都会死掉。So why some of the startup can make it? Why so many startup cannot make it? So maybe you could have a look in my portfolio. Some of our selection criteria may tell you about some elements that's important to make a startup successful. 所以有什么重要的元素可以让一个 startup 成功？我们在过去3年投了大概20个种子公司。We invest in around 20 seed-stage startup, and in the last 3 years, all of them are still running. So we didn't have any startup say goodbye yet. And among these startups, 70% of them already raised a bigger round. So 你们看到上面的那些已经是 raise 了一个 bigger round 的公司。So what is our selection criteria to give us this result? So let's have a look. So usually when I look at a startup, I ask them a lot of detailed questions. So these are some of the questions I would ask the startup. And among all these questions, one of the questions which is very important inside my heart, much bigger than other question, 最重要的问题就是 What is your attraction? When I ask what is your attraction, what I'm asking is what you have achieved within what period of time. So, for example, what you have done in the last 1 month, or 3 months, or even half a year, it doesn't matter. 可以是1周，可以是1个月，可以是3个月 ，it doesn't matter. 最重要是你要能告诉我，你在过去你计划的这一段时间里面，你做了什么事情。So the most important thing is, within your planned period of time, no matter how long it is, what you have done, what you have achieved. And you need to be able to tell me what you have learned within this period. So it doesn't need to be really surprising, exceptional traction. It could be a failure. And you need to tell me what you have learned from this failure. For example, it may be a failure that tells you your plan A didn't work. So just like me, when I go to the living room, I want to paint the wall, I found that the plan A doesn't work because some of the paint are too old, it's stuck inside the wall, I can't remove it. So I need to change to plan B. So if you can tell me what you have done before and what's the result, what you have learned, what is your new strategy, what is your plan B, it's still okay because when I invest in startup, we don't think that plan A always works. Usually, plan A doesn't work, and you need to be able to learn fast. That's the most important. 所以学习的很快是最重要。And it also tells me one thing very important, because a lot of the startup they just keep thinking, oh, I don't have a good traction. Does it matter? But what really matters is not the number of the traction. What really matters is whether you know how to set up the KPI, the key performance indicator. So if you are able to set up the KPI for your project, and you are able to evaluate based on your own KPI and come up with new strategy, new solution, or even a plan B, that's okay. Because when you run a startup, it's about learning fast. It's not about you come up with the brilliant, successful idea in day one. So learning fast is more important than being successful in the first period of time. Because imagine if I have a startup tell me, oh, I launched my app already and I have 1 million downloads within 1 month. It sounds like very good, right? 1 million downloads. But if you think carefully, 1 million downloads may not be something good. What if these 1 million download users, they didn't keep the app? They delete your app after 1 month. So it would be a disaster, right? So being able to measure your KPI maybe in the first week, not after 1 month. You already identify after 10,000 people download your app, only 1% stay. Then you already know, oh, there's some problem with our app. It's not good enough, or it's not something the user need. Then you already need to fine-tune. We call it iterate. You already need to iterate, come up with new plan, fine-tune your app. Then it's much better than have 1 million download and all these users didn't keep your app, right? So learning is very important. Able to set up your KPI and evaluate your result is even more important. So all these are included in the question, what is your traction? And there are other questions also very important. For example, the pre-money valuation is also very important because we encounter some startup, they have a valuation which is too high, much higher than the normal standard. Usually this kind of startup will encounter a very difficult situation when they need to raise the next round. And in the current round, they may also squeeze out some professional investor, and they may be only able to find some investor who didn't have enough information about the valuation, who is not within this ecosystem. So this may not be a good thing. So find the right pre-money valuation is also very important. If you ask me how to find it, usually through your network. So it's also about learning. You need to learn fast. You need to have a network of supporting people who can exchange information with you. So what's the right pre-money valuation? This is a dynamic number. It's not the same. Every year it will change. So you need to have the real-time information. And if you can get a professional angel investor, it would also be good because the investor can provide you a lot of reference for setting up the valuation. And another thing I want to emphasize is to find a good team. It's very important also. Some of the startup founders told me that they start with their own, a single founder, and they tell me that they don't need any co-founder partners. Usually I prefer to have a team with co-founders because I have gone through the whole process myself for 20 years. I started 3 companies myself. And you know, running a startup involves a lot of workload, really. Even you have 3 co-founders work together as a team, you already need to work overload every day. So if you didn't have a team to support you, it's really difficult. You don't have enough manpower to kick it off. So finding a co-founder is also very important. And some people ask me, they also want to find a co-founder, but they didn't know where to find these co-founder. So you will see nowadays there are a lot of events that can facilitate you to find a co-founder. So some of the events like Startup Weekend, some accelerator program or pre-accelerator program, or even some job fair that can facilitate you to go to meet other people who are interested in the startup ecosystem. So these would be potential co-founders. So actually, I have more questions I will ask a startup. So these are all the other questions. And some of the questions I already mentioned, like what's the KPI? So how they evaluate their result. This is super important because when you set up your strategy, usually you don't know what's the reaction of the market. You don't know whether your strategy is right or wrong. So you need the KPI to measure and to fine-tune, to iterate your business model. Another thing I find it really, really important is the cap table. So when you start a project, you need to have some understanding how to manage your cap table. That means, for example, how much of shares that you are going to allocate for your key employees, and how much share you would allocate for your key advisors, and investors, dilution, and other things. So I'm going to give you some suggestions. For example, if you are a team of startup with 3 co-founders already, so usually the option pool that you would allocate for your staff will be around 10 to 15% when you are in seed stage. You just go to Google, you search startup option pool, you can find a lot of relevant information. And another thing is for advisor. So I have seen some startup, why I said cap table is also very important. I won't invest in a startup because they have a very nice cap table. But I will not invest in a startup because of a problem in the cap table. For example, I've seen some startup in their cap table, they have an advisor, not investor, just advisor, taking up 5 to 25% of the share of the company. So in that case, that's a big problem. If they can't solve this problem, I cannot invest. So this is a very realistic thing that you need to understand. And I have seen many cases. And I encountered one startup got this kind of situation. One of the advisors took 25% of the company. Yeah, and I told them if they cannot fix, I cannot invest. So I communicate with the advisor, I communicate with the funding team, I give them a solution, a way out of this situation, and finally they fix it. So I invest in that company. I also encountered another company, the advisor take up 5% of the company. So I also did the same thing, and they fixed the problem, and I invest. So usually, sometimes the advisor themselves, they didn't know. They didn't know what they have done. They didn't know taking up 5 to 25% would cause some problem on the company. So when you explain to them, when you provide them some standard information, they are happy to accept. So for this thing, in the last page, I have a reference page. I got some link for the template, like advisory agreement, how to count, what's the percentage I have this information in the last page. You could download all those information by yourself. So just give you a quick reference. Usually for advisory share, vesting for 2 years, because advisory share usually is like around 2 years contract. So vesting for 2 years is around maximum 1%. So it depends on which stage your company is. And in the information, the template I provide, there are very detailed breakdown to tell you. And also for the option pool, when you search in the internet, you will find a term, they call it vesting period. So you can also have a look. So usually for option pool, I mentioned that 10 to 15%. It's not that you need to give 10 to 15% now. Usually it's vesting through 3 to 4 years. So the person needs to work for you 3 to 4 years before they can get the whole option. Also, the same thing, vesting plan also apply to founder. So this is something related to cap table also. So why this is so important? Every startup that I invest, I need them to set up the vesting plan first. Because if you don't set up the vesting plan, if you say you have 3 founders holding the major share of the company in equal share, so if you didn't have the vesting plan, if one of your partner want to leave the company after 1 year, say, and this person take away 1/3 of your share, then it would be very, it would be very difficult for you to raise future funding in that way. Because we call this kind of share sleeping share. Sleeping share, that means they don't help you. They just hold the share, stay there, and they don't do anything. So this kind of company is really difficult to get funding from investor. So that's why from day one, you need to have the basic planning, like vesting plan for all the founders. There are a lot of standard contracts or standard plan that you can search in the internet. Usually, I would prefer the 4 years vesting plan and 1 year cliff. That means you need to work 4 years to get all the shares that you deserved. And you need to work at least 1 year to start to do the vesting. So if you work less than 1 year, you get nothing. So this is some very basic suggestion that you need to have. It builds up the good foundation. Otherwise, if something happens, it's really difficult. And luckily, there was one company. They didn't have the vesting plan in the very beginning. And I suggest them to restructure, to add in the vesting plan. And after a few months, their CTO wants to leave. So luckily, we already have the plan for any people who want to exit. They have a plan to exit. They get what they deserve, and they didn't harm the company. So it is a happy ending. So maybe we could have a small break for some question. Any question? One question. One question? No question? Okay. So what's really, really important? Here I put up more explanation on the startup. So you could see the number one factor I mentioned many, many times is you need to be able to learn. Of course, you need to be able to focus. Why I add the focus? You know, some startup, they tell me, oh, I have 2 companies. So company A, company B, that's a problem. When I hear a startup got 2 companies, I won't invest. So they need to be focused on the project. And some startup tell me, I'm running company A and I have a new project I have in mind, and I want to set up a JV or a subsidiary and put this new project in a separate company to raise different investors. This is also a problem. If you are still a seed stage company or even Series A stage, if you have too many different cap table, different entity, it's very difficult for you to get big. So focus and learn fast are very important. Traction is also very important. And I gave you some example on how to measure your traction. So you need to check the conversion rate and the retention rate. You go to the internet, you search, and you can find a lot of examples. So, and a lot of other things like the idea, whether the idea is interesting is also very important. And one good reference, you know, when you want to pitch an investor, you need to prepare the pitching deck. So you could search in the internet. You can find the pitching deck of a successful company like Airbnb, LinkedIn, even YouTube. You can find their pitching deck. So you could study their pitching deck, what they have pitched to their investor. It's very helpful for you to do this homework before you go to pitch an investor. Have you looked at Airbnb's pitching deck? Anybody? No? YouTube? LinkedIn? No? Okay, then you should do this homework when you go back home. And also, you know, a lot of support and resources nowadays. When I was an entrepreneur, I didn't have so many support. I only have a few angel investors. They gave us 1.5 million US dollar, and that's all. That's all, just money, nothing else. Totally no support. But nowadays, before you start the seed stage pitching, before you approach the investor, you can go through support like accelerator program, incubation program, and you already have a lot of template, like the investment template available for you, like from Y Combinator, the SAFE document, 500 startup, the KISS document, and a lot other resources. I have it in the last page. So it's totally free of charge, and you already know what is founder vesting plan, what is option pool. At that time, I know nothing about founder vesting plan. So when I also encounter, I have co-founder want to leave, and at that time, we didn't have a very good exit plan for the founder leaving. So nowadays, it's much better. And so for the business plan, when you prepare the investor pitching deck, a lot of people like to use the 10-page deck. You just search the internet 10-page deck, and it already provides you a very good template, what kind of things you need to include in the 10 pages deck. And I just mentioned the valuation needs to be appropriate. So apart from asking your friend, you could also search. Nowadays, got really enough information for you to find the right valuation. And also, these are something that I mentioned already. You could download this PowerPoint in my LinkedIn account, in my LinkedIn profile. And this is the reference that I just mentioned. So all the link. So you could download it in my LinkedIn profile. You just go to LinkedIn, find my name, and you can download all the PowerPoint and all the information about the template I just mentioned. So any question? No question, then That's all for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carmen. Thank you.